Part 4. The Years When Time Stood Still. The years after the goodbye. After Lucas ended things, Ben drifted through life like a man walking through fog. He returned to the Castro theater, worked shifts, volunteered, marched, lived, but it all felt muted, dimmed. People saw him laugh, celebrate, even flirt, but none of it reached the deep place inside him that Lucas once touched. San Francisco changed around him. The world changed, but Ben treated his heart carefully, like an old injury that flared whenever he pushed too hard. He kept the shoebox of letters hidden behind old film reels in his closet. He never reread them. He never threw them away. He simply carried them. In the early 1980s, tragedy swept the Castro like a dark tide. Friends fell sick, then disappeared. Community centers became triage units. Posters of the missing grew into wallpaper. Ben helped as much as he could, delivering meals, volunteering at Ward 5B, holding trembling hands through long nights. He felt the absence of Lucas in those years more painfully than ever. Lucas, who might have steadied him. Lucas, who might have taught him how to grieve without drowning. Yet somehow, in the chaos, Ben survived, and surviving became its own kind of guilt and its own kind of purpose. Lucas's life in the shadows. Lucas continued living the life that was expected of him, not the one he wanted. He stayed married, raised his daughter, grew his architecture practice, attended church on Sundays, waved politely at neighbors, but the brightest parts of him, the courage, the laughter, the fire, remained tucked away like the letters under his bed. He lived cautiously, quietly, always looking over his shoulder, always terrified that someone might see the truth in his eyes. He aged fast, not in body, but in spirit. There were moments when he almost broke free. A late-night drive past Twin Peaks, a pride parade he watched from the sidewalk, hidden under a baseball cap. A moment when his daughter said, "Dad, you always look sad when you think no one's watching." But fear kept him tethered. Still, he never stopped loving Ben, and he never stopped writing letters he couldn't send. By the time Lucas turned 70, the shoebox under his bed was full. Hundreds of pages, thousands of unsaid words, decades of unspoken truth. The Castro in the 2000s, a new era. By the early 2000s, the Castro transformed into a place where love could finally be loud. Rainbow crosswalks, same-sex weddings, drag queens reading to children in libraries, couples holding hands openly in cafes where once they hid in corners. Then, now older, silver-haired and softer in the face, watched the world he had fought for take shape. He worked part-time at a non-profit, lived in a cozy apartment above a bookstore, and became a kind of quiet community elder. People sought him out for advice, history, or comfort. He never told them about Lucas. Some stories hurt too deeply to share. But sometimes, when he passed the Castro Theater, he felt a whisper of his younger self, fearless, on fire, holding a man he loved under a stormy awning, and he wondered, did Lucas ever find peace? Was he even still alive? He never tried to look him up. Some wounds were easier to live with than reopen. The obituary. It was a foggy October morning when Ben opened the San Francisco Chronicle and saw it. Lucas A. Harper, 78, architect, devoted father, community volunteer. The world tilted. Ben sat down hard, breath caught in his chest. There was a small photo. Older, lined face, thinning hair, but the same eyes, the same gentle intelligence, the same quiet sadness. He read the obituary 3 times. Lucas had died of heart failure, survived by his wife, his daughter, 2 grandchildren, and then one line broke him. He was known for his private nature, but those close to him said he carried a deep and lifelong tenderness. Ben closed the paper and pressed it to his chest. Tenderness. Yes, he had known that tenderness better than anyone. A knock on the door. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on Ben's apartment door. A young woman stood there holding a weathered shoebox tied with a faded ribbon. "Are you Benjamin Carter?" she asked. "Yes," he said, heart thundering. "I'm Emily Harper. Lucas was my father." Ben felt the world collapse and rebuild all at once. I'm sorry for your loss," he whispered. She nodded tearfully. But then she held out the box. "My father wanted you to have this. He left instructions in his will. He said you would understand." Ben's hands shook as he accepted it. Emily didn't ask to come inside. She didn't ask questions. She simply said, "He loved you. My mother knew it. She made peace with it years ago. I hope this gives you both what you never had." Then she left. And Ben stood alone, with the weight of a lifetime in his hands. The letters. Ben set the shoebox on his kitchen table. He untied the ribbon slowly, reverently. Inside were hundreds of envelopes, each one addressed to him, dated across decades, written through heartbreak, longing, regret, hope. He opened the first one, dated August 1978, the day before the parade. "Ben, I'm terrified of what I'm feeling. Terrified because I've never felt more alive." He opened another from 1985. "Ben, I walk by the Castro sometimes. I wonder if you still live there. I wonder if you are happy. I hope you are. I hope you found someone braver than me." Another from 1999. "Ben, my daughter got married today. I wish I could have told her about you. I wish she could know the side of me that only you ever saw." Another from 2016. "Ben, if the world had been kinder, I would have built a life with you. A house in the Castro, 2 mugs by the sink, your shoes beside mine. I loved you. I never stopped." Ben cried until his whole body shook. 40 years of love spilled across his kitchen table. 40 years of words written by a man who never found the courage to speak them, but who never stopped feeling them. The last letter, finally delivered. At the bottom of the box was a single envelope marked "Open Last." Inside was Lucas's final letter, written just weeks before his death. "My Ben, the truth is simple. You were the great love of my life. I hope you lived better than I did. If you are reading this, it means I am gone. And it also means you finally know. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for forgiving me, even when I didn't deserve it. In another life, in another world, I will choose you. Every time. Lucas. Ben held the letter to his heart, eyes closed, breathing slowly. For the first time in decades, the ache inside him softened. The love had been real, the loss had been real, and now finally the truth was real too. Epilogue. A place for the letters. Ben donated the letters to the LGBT Historical Society Museum in San Francisco, under one condition. They would remain sealed for 20 years. After that, scholars and lovers and dreamers could read them, not as scandal, but as history, as proof of how love survived even when men weren't allowed to. He asked that the collection be titled The Castro Love Letters, a chronicle of courage, fear, and love in 20th century San Francisco. Ben lived to see the display case unveiled, his silver hair glowing under the museum lights, his eyes soft with memory. Visitors walked by with quiet reverence, not knowing he was the man in the story. He didn't need them to know. He had his closure. He had his truth. He had Lucas's love delivered at last. And every year on Pride weekend, Ben walked down Market Street once more, alone, but not lonely, because somewhere, in the echo of the crowd and the shimmer of the flags, Lucas walked with him. Always had, always would.